Hello and good afternoon. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, joining you from eTurbo News and the Breaking News Show in Honolulu. With me is Dr. Peter Tarlow in College Station, Texas. And as you can see behind me, it's a little bit of a cloudy day. If I turn the camera a little bit to the left, you could see the ocean and the harbor and that there are people out there in boats. So it's a good beach day. Peter, how's everything in College Station?
Everything is great in College Station. It's a typical pre-summer day. It's not summer yet, but almost summer. I don't think it really got above 92 degrees, but it's blue skies and not too windy and cool in the mornings, cool in the evenings, and then around 92 in the afternoon. If you're on the Celsius temperature, that's about 36 degrees Celsius.
Well, that's definitely a lot warmer than what we have here.
Yes. So you should come visit.
Heat, I think it's a dry heat, right? So you guys don't sweat to death.
No, it's a very humid heat.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yes. I tell people living in my part of Texas, remember, Texas is very big. So it is the size of crossing Texas is like going from Hawaii to Los Angeles. So most people don't realize how wide Texas is. And parts of Texas are dry, but parts of Texas are very wet. I live not far, only about 100 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. Well, and I tell people it's like living in a boiling bottle of oil of Olay. And that's why our skin is so beautiful.
No, I know how big Texas is, and I know how big you guys want to see Texas. I appreciate this, but it's by far not as far as from here to Los Angeles, because that's a 5.5-hour flight. So I cannot imagine that you can
maybe not quite that far, but pretty far.
It's about coast to coast from here to Los Angeles, basically.
It's about from one side of Texas to the other. It's about a 3-hour flight.
But it's a huge economy. I mean, the economy is like the size of France and
bigger. We're the 7th largest economy in the world.
Right. And well, here in our area, Hawaii is back to normal. A lot of visitors, but our neighbor we just talked to, and you said probably out of 1 million people don't know where this country is. But our closest country and geographically closest neighbor from Hawaii is the Republic of Kiribati, and with 100,000 people, and they just now opened up for domestic tourism, and it's going to be several months before they're thinking about opening up for international tourism. So
which is really amazing because they only have 100,000 people. So it's the size of a small neighborhood in Manhattan, or maybe population of 4 or 5 apartment buildings. But I'm glad they're opening up for domestic tourism. I think you're right. I had to look it up on the web, and I'm pretty good at geography, but Kiribati took me. So this is a country I think most of us have not heard of. And if they're not open up for international tourism, which is 99.9999999% of the world, I guess we don't really need to know where they are, because most of us can't go there. Only domestic Kiribatians can visit each other.
Yeah, we have a lot. I mean, we should do a session sometimes on the island nations in the Pacific, because there are many small countries. There is Nauru, there's Niue, there's Vanuatu. Then, of course, we have dependency like French Polynesia, what is a few hours flight from here, what is part of France. And strangely, when you fly to French Polynesia, you have a special EU lane at immigration where it's a lot faster, but hardly anyone gets in line at this lane, because when you fly from Hawaii there, most people are not from the EU. So yes, we have a lot of diversity here in the Pacific, even US territories like Guam, like the Northern Mariana Islands. We have Micronesia. So it's actually, we should have a session sometimes and talk a little bit.
And there's probably still a lot of vestiges of colonialism. And I wonder, maybe these island republics, nations, like being part of a bigger metropolitan country, or maybe they feel resentful that they really can't protect themselves and they got eaten up by big countries. Certainly, some of those islands were used for testing of atomic bombs in the 1950s and 60s, and some of those people went into some real issues. So yeah, I think it'll be fascinating.
Recently, I mean, one of the countries, the Solomon Islands, are making the news because China became very friendly. And many people say they're in the process of putting a military base right in the basically in close to Australia, close to Guam, what is US. And so politically, it became quite important. And
Yes, it did.
specifically, China has an interest there. Some of the republics here in the Pacific, they still recognize Taiwan. So China is really pushing a lot of pressure on them to change. And then when they change, there's a lot of there are a lot of changes also economically for these countries.
And as of course, you know, there's also a lot of pressure coming from North Korea, and they're now testing rockets being launched from submarines. And they consistently, I don't think it'll happen tomorrow, but consistently talk about an attack on Hawaii and doing a better job of attacking Hawaii than the Japanese did in 1942. So
North Korea has other problems because they just now for the first time admitted that they have a COVID problem.
Yes.
Most of their population not yet vaccinated, and they admitted there are 5 people dead today. It's probably a lot more. And so we have to watch and see what COVID is now doing.
Of course, that's always very dangerous when you have a situation like that, because one of the ways that dictators take people's minds off domestic problems is by creating an international problem. So while they should be concerned about their own population, my guess is that a smart thing to do would be to get into a fight or maybe bomb Hawaii or something like that. And that way people...
I think, Peter, we should cut that part out. No one wants to bomb Hawaii.
Well, no, I think people may want to bomb Hawaii. They may not do it. And I hope they won't do it. But certainly the North Koreans have threatened it. And if they do it, but even a threat will take people's minds away from their COVID problem. So it's always scary when you have a domestic problem. Will dictators use that to, will use an international problem to deflect ideas. So that's a problem that's going on in the world. I think the real issue is tourism has facing consistently challenges. And that challenge world, I think it's really important that the tourism industry think through this summer, how are we going to give people good value for their money? And one of the ways to do that is through excellent customer service and by smiles. And people, I think, are willing to put up with a lot if we treat them well. But when we treat them as just another number going through a line, then people, no matter what the cost is, they don't like us. And I think that's been a big issue in sustainable tourism, is the issue of good customer service and making the individual feel like a king or a queen rather than just another widget going through a line. So I would really stress to the people in the tourism world, this summer is a good time to improve your customer service and make people know you care and you're happy they're there. Except, of course, in Hawaii, where the Hawaiian Tourism Board doesn't want you to come. But people are coming no matter what.
Yeah, well, there are always different ideas to tourism. You know, some ideas are non-tourism, and you cannot really promote tourism if you don't want tourism. I understand.
No. But I do think,
to be fair, it's not we don't want tourism in Hawaii. A lot of people need tourism. It's our main business. People are wonderful to tourists. Just the tourism board doesn't seem to agree with this, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a kind of a strange tourism board. It's the anti-tourism board. But most other places do want visitors. And that means it's really important to find ways for the visitor to get his or her money's worth. The other thing is, I think it's important, and this I think you brought up in your own sort of way, find ways to promote your tourism in locales that are geographically in close proximity. So if I were a North African country, I would be looking to promote European tourism because they're close. It's just a jump across the Mediterranean. If I were in Latin America, I would really be pushing for North American tourism because it's not a long haul trip. If I were in Asia, I'd be looking on how can I promote what I have. So in the Philippines, looking at the countries that are in close proximity to the Philippines, where people can get there for not too much money, have a great time, enjoy themselves, and still not feel they've lost an arm and a leg because of the cost of air travel. And that's something that it's very important we think through. How do you compensate for continuously rising prices? We see that in gas, we see that in air fuel, we see that in diesel. Um, in Texas, we hit $4 a gallon per gallon of gas, which is incredibly expensive for us. I know we're not, Hawaii probably will make it to $10 soon, but you're right. What do you know?
Well, I filled up my tank yesterday. I can tell you, I went to Costco, and Costco is always the cheapest way of filling up the car. But it was $5.09 a gallon. What is the highest I've ever seen it?
$5.90 or $5.9?
Oh, 9, please. No, not $5.90. That's probably next week. So you're already a week ahead of us.
Here. Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's it. So it's, I think you're less expensive than in California.
Possibly, yeah.
Yes. But again, people are upset. And you understand that. So therefore, you have to find ways that people are not going to spend too much money on the cost of airfare travel. And countries that are dependent on long haul travel may have some real issues in this rising inflation on a worldwide level.
Yeah, and airfares did go up from just a few months ago. I checked prices to Europe just yesterday. They literally doubled from what it was a month ago. So airlines and the flights seem to be sold out. A lot of flights are very full. There's hardly any seats, so people are buying. So that's the.
I think they are buying, but I think there's also an issue that many of the carriers have cut back the number of flights they have. And so therefore they're pushing more people into. So what you're doing is you're paying more for less space, and you're paying more for less good customer service. The other side of that is, I don't know how long people will continue to buy, because part of this is pent up money that was from the COVID. But as we go through that and we get in the post-COVID world, people may say, you know what, this isn't worth it. We'll have to see. But it'll be really interesting to see what this situation is like next year. And if they continue to buy, other than business travel, which will probably continue, or even if that will go down and people will substitute it with Zoom calls, and instead of in-person meetings, will they go back to virtual meetings like we had during Zoom? I hope not, because I think you lose a lot in a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, and you do. And people are now hungry for real personal meetings, but we don't know how long this stays. People are hungry because they didn't have it for several years. Right, exactly. We don't know how this all balances out. I understand the Arabian travel market that has just concluded yesterday was a huge success, very busy this year in Dubai. Dubai itself is quite big with record occupancy rates, also outside trade shows. So they're very happy, and people are traveling for some reason.
Yes, they are. Well, you know what, again, is this the pent-up energy that's now coming through? Or is this people will spend no matter what? And that'll be an interesting thing to see. The other thing is that some of these trade shows, etc., are based to a great extent on people who have a fairly large income. And so they're able to afford these expenses. Now, what will happen as we see travel possibly peter out when it comes to middle class travel? I don't know. That's been a very important part of the travel market, and travel may become a luxury item only for the rich again.
Well, we have to see. There are many markets in the world. There are many different economic situations, and now with the war going on, everything is completely uncertain. So it's going to be different news every day, I think, Peter.
Yeah. I think you're right. Be interesting to see. Russia, of course, is threatening now Finland and Sweden, and we'll see if war breaks out in those countries, or if it's a lot of bluster, but there's no real action behind the bluster, which would be hopefully what will happen. But that would really turn the world a little bit upside down. If, God forbid, we have wars breaking out in other parts of Europe, it would.
Well, I don't think it's going to go as far as war, but they're going to be oil and these different type of commodities will play a huge role, what again then reflects the economies of these countries.
Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting to see how it turns out. And I don't think we know, but I think we're living at a time when there's a lot of instability. We're getting over COVID. We're facing shortages of food, shortages of supply chain shortages. We're facing problems with fuel. We're facing problems with rising costs. Of course, in the United States, there's the tremendous crisis of the baby formula, which doesn't sound like a big deal. But if you're a young family without baby formula, you can't travel. You're stuck. And that's a big deal. And of course, now we have the scandal that with all the illegal immigrants coming to the United States, and we've now discovered the Department of Homeland Security bought up a lot of the baby formula to give to illegal immigrants when real citizens are not able to get it. And so that's just a whole nother issue that's taking place. And these are, unfortunately, the world is interconnected. So what goes on domestically in one country can impact tourism across the world.
Yeah, well, what can we say? We just, everyone is doing their best, and there are always going to be regions that prosper out of one situation and know how to turn it around for their own benefit. And there are other destinations, they're simply suffering. Because they don't have the resources to do what they do. If you look at Saudi Arabia is spending billions launching their tourism industry, and doesn't hurt them because I guess oil prices are high enough for them to afford it. And also Saudi Arabia is spending billions in getting influence especially in the travel and tourism industry, in attracting headquarters from so many organizations into that country. In Saudi Airlines now talking about becoming a major airline hub like Emirates in Saudi Arabia. So there are going to be some countries that maybe are in for a boom like we would have never expected it.
Yeah, I could see Saudi Arabia really improving radically. One of the things that's interesting to see if they become a hub, because they are close to Dubai and they're close to Istanbul. And Istanbul is a major hub. And of course, Turkish Airlines I think, goes to more destinations than any other airline in the world. And Istanbul has the world's largest airport. So, they're all in the Middle East. Of course, they're also getting ready for the World Cup in soccer, which will be taking place in Qatar. So sporting events are big deals, and that changes things. I know here in my town, Texas, they're developing a whole sports complex now for amateur sports. And that's become a huge tourism issue. So they're not looking at getting somebody from France or from Russia or from Germany or Poland. They're looking to get people from other states, but who want to come to play softball or volleyball. And they're looking at a short haul, but spend an extra week here. And they're building around a lake, a whole center of entertainment zones. So that may be another model. In other words, don't look at the long haul, look at the short haul, and then take those places and utilize people from not just 200, 300, 400 miles away that can become a new source of revenue and income. And it also improves the local economy.
Yeah, no, of course. And well, a lot going on in the world, and well, we're going to be looking for the latest and the news. You can always find it on eturbonews.com. And if you wanted to watch any of our breaking news shows, we now have a special website for this, breakingnewsshow.com. You can find this event and many others. And if you have any ideas, any things you'd like to discuss, just click on contact, let us know. And we may be able to invite you to one of our events, or even give you the microphone so you can tell the world what is relevant to you.
And I think it would be really interesting if some of these smaller countries that people have not heard from, if they have a representative who'd like to be on the show, that would be great, because many of us have never heard of some of these places. And this would be really a lesson in geography and a lesson in tourism. So that'd be great. That'd be wonderful if one of their representatives would like to speak.
Absolutely, and we can possibly arrange some of this.
All
Well, Peter,
right.
I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Yeah,
Or
for me, it's evening, and for you, it's I guess
it's afternoon.
afternoon. Okay, so you have a good afternoon. I'm going to have a good evening, and I hope you have a good dinner. I had a great dinner, and look forward to speaking to you real soon.
Thank you, Peter.
Bye bye.